So everyone knows that The Simpsons was the funniest show throughout the 90s, and everyone also knows the show fell off and not many people watch it anymore. So I'm gonna explain why the show fell off, but before that I'm gonna let Conan O'Brien explain how the show was made.
The experience on The Simpsons was from the first time you pitch it and you work it in the room, and then you go back and you work on it again, and then the room breaks it apart and works on it again. There's about 18 stages where you're going through, and you get to the point where it's fine little filing tools, and sometimes there's a joke that's worked 35 times throughout the process, but it doesn't work the 36th time, and it comes out and is replaced with an inferior joke.
So I'm sure they have the same process of the show and how it's still being written and rewritten. But I'm gonna name two characters who were part of the show from the beginning and eventually left. And once they left, the show wasn't the same anymore. First guy is named George Meyer, who was the president of the Harvard Lampoon and eventually worked his way into the New York comedy scene, working for Letterman and Saturday Night Live. The second guy is John Swartzwelder. There's not much known about him, there's just a few photos of him. But he ended up working for SNL too, and that's where they met. Once George Myers left, he went to Colorado. He started a humor zine called Army Man, and he recruited John Swartzwelder and other friends to work on this zine for fun. That zine is hugely influential on the show. I'm gonna read some jokes from the zine. One is called A Lakely Story. My friend from Michigan says, if you push all the Great Lakes together, they'd be as big as the Mediterranean. I'd say, why bother? I mean, that's pretty good. Another one is called Pet Peeve. If there's one thing that really honks me off, it's the hopelessness and futility of the human condition. I think that's funny, but that's not the type of thing you see on TV these days. Were contacted by one of the creators of The Simpsons, Sam Simon, and recruited to start working on the family-oriented cartoon. But what they did was they took this kind of absurdist, silly, surreal type of humor and transplanted it into this family show. So that's why The Simpsons was unique. They had these guys, these hippies, gun enthusiasts, Western fans. They like NASA, they like sports betting, like Abraham Lincoln. They like all these types of things and topics that are unique to them, and they brought it into a show that wouldn't necessarily have this without them. George Meyer was the head of the rewrite room.
We should mention George Meyer, I think.
Yeah. No,
because I always, he's pretty legendary, of course, and all that. And the way I'd always put it was like, if we were a baseball team and a really great joke was a home run, I think George hit the most.
Yeah.
I think so. I wouldn't know who's second, but I thought he hit the most.
He created a lot of the characters on the show, a lot of the darker characters, I would say, like Principal Skinner, Chief Wiggum, Barney, Moe, Nelson, Ralph. All those characters are kind of losers, but they always have at least one redeeming quality. So it was never a cruel thing that they tried to do on the show. They would make fun of their characters, but they were multi-dimensional. I think that's a big thing that they do. These two guys came up in that hippie-ish era, drug culture era, so they bring like a kindness to the show. So John Swartzwelder had a different role in the show. He actually had special treatment where he would write his episodes and they wouldn't retool them, because if they changed one part, it would kind of mess up the whole script.
Swartzwelder, I think the
59 episodes.
59 episodes. He had such a great left brain way of thinking.
He's a unique, brilliant guy.
He ended up writing books after The Simpsons, which I read a few, and they're really funny. You don't go 2 sentences without a joke in the books, and the same thing with the scripts. I would say when I look back at all the episodes he did, he had the most unique concepts for episodes. Like A Boy Who Knew Too Much. That was the episode with the French waiter and Bart hid under the table and the chowder and stuff. That stuff was very unexpected, non-linear. A lot of those things are missing ingredients in the show now. So that'd be my reasoning as to why the show isn't the same. It's kind of like sports when like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen leave the Bulls. It's not the same anymore. That was just like a once in a moment type thing.
The rewrite process from the outline, from the first pitch to the outline, to the second draft of the outline, to the draft, to the second draft, to the room rewrite, to the read-through, and then they cut it together and you get to listen to it like a radio show and decide which jokes aren't working then. Then the storyboard, you guys said, well, this works and this doesn't, and change the storyboard, and then change again when you have this sort of first animatic, and change again when the color comes back and you can put jokes into people's mouths.